Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. All right, guys, I'm having a little bit of fun today with the title of this video. Is this man Scientology Jesus? What do I mean by that? I guess I mean the idea of someone who's trying to lead a group of people to the Holy Land, the Promised Land. Now, guys, I'm not a historical scholar. After all, I was raised in a cult. I mean, I'm not a religious scholar. Was Jesus the one trying to lead people to the Promised Land, or was that Moses? I don't know, guys. Don't hold it against me, okay? But here's why we're talking about this. Okay, who's Tom DeVocht? Tom DeVocht is a very senior a former very senior high-level executive in Scientology. I first personally came to know Tom DeVocht back when I was about 13 years old, a good little Scientology staff member soldier training full-time as a trainee from the Philadelphia Scientology organization, training at the Clearwater, Florida Scientology organization called FLAG. As a 13-year-old, I was taken out of school to work for Scientology full-time. This is what I now consider to be child trafficking. I wasn't in school. We didn't do school while we were at FLAG. The irony of what happened at that time, and I'm going to be a little long-winded about all this because this is not just going to be a very, very short video. We're talking about a lot of things in this video. At that time in Clearwater, Florida, Sea Organization members who were my age, the age that I was at that time, were required to go to some version of school for a certain number of hours per week for legal reasons. Now, when I say some version of school, you know, the Sea Org would bring some Scientologists to tutor, you know, the Sea Org kids on reading, writing, and arithmetic. And it was probably some version of homeschool, but it was considered a legal requirement for these kids to do this. I, as a trainee from the Philadelphia organization, was not a member of the Sea Organization. Now, I was living on the Sea Org base. I was living with Sea Org members. I was eating with the Sea Org members. I was studying with the Sea Org members, but was not myself a Sea Org member. None of the officials in the state of Pennsylvania knew that I was in Florida. None of the state officials in the state of Florida knew that I was there. And for some reason, kids in other kids that were in that state with me, not, you know, in that situation with me, of which there were hundreds. There were hundreds of kids at that time from organizations all over the world who were sent to FLAG for full-time training, but who were not staff members of FLAG. None of those kids went to school for any hours per week for years. So from the age of 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, I was just studying Scientology full-time in Clearwater, never went to school. And also I never went back to school when I returned to Philadelphia. Why did I get off onto that tangent? Oh, because that's where I first came to know and meet Tom DeVocht. He was one of the senior most Scientology Sea Org members on the base. His post was commanding officer of the Commodore's Messengers organization for Clearwater. And without getting into too far into the weeds with too many definitions, that made him one of the most senior, powerful leaders on the base. And he truly answered to nobody but David Miscavige. Maybe he answered to one of David Miscavige's personal representatives, but he truly answered to nobody but David Miscavige. He is without a doubt one of the most senior ex-Scientologists in terms of their experience in the Sea Org. I first became aware of Tom speaking out publicly back in 2009 in a series of articles that appeared in the Tampa Bay Times. Back then it was called the St. Pete Times. Tom was also featured, one of the people featured in the documentary Going Clear. Tom was also featured in at least one of the episodes of the Scientology in the Aftermath TV program. So he's been doing a lot of speaking out for a long time. And then he sort of went quiet for a whole number of years just due to, you know, making money, raising a daughter. And recently he started a Substack. And I'll share that with you here. This is what Tom's Substack looks like. And just recently, this morning, or looks like yesterday, he did a blog post called "Not Anti-Scientology, Just Anti-Miscavige, a Call to Action." Okay, I read through this whole blog post this morning, and I was like, we got to do a video about this. We got to talk about this. There's a lot to unpack, and it did make me, sort of the inspiration for the title. Is this man Scientology Jesus? Because let's look at this in the context of like other high-level ex-Sea Org members who spoke out and sort of took up the mantle of trying to be the leader of the ex-Scientology movement, trying to sort of dictate what is the right tone for a member of the ex-Scientologist to have. What should be the right goal? What is the virtuous way to be and do and speak? And should one person be trying to set that standard and expect others to follow? The one person who really did embrace that leadership role, self-appointed leadership role, was Marty Rathbun. Marty Rathbun is hands down the most senior ever defector from the Sea organization. He truly answered to nobody but David Miscavige. We won't get into Marty Rathbun's whole resume, but Marty Rathbun then turned around to be the biggest, giant, no good, low down, dirty traitor that the ex-Scientology movement has ever seen. Marty Rathbun was the, if anyone considered that the ex-Scientology movement had a leader, and I'm sure there are people who would disagree, there's no question that anyone who ever considered it had a leader would tell you it was Marty Rathbun for the time that he was being the outspoken activist that he was. Now, there were other people on, the roster of well-known names, including Mike Rinder, but even Mike Rinder looked up to Marty Rathbun. Okay, even Mike Rinder was following Marty Rathbun's lead. Marty Rathbun then took a money deal to turn on all of his friends and not only stop speaking out, that would have been fine. I don't think anybody would have held that against him, but actively went back to David Miscavige as his little lapdog and did video after video after video after video produced by Scientology Media Productions, shitting on every single ex-Scientologist who had ever spoken out in his era and afterwards. He did videos shitting on Mike Rinder. He did videos shitting on Leah Remini. He did videos shitting on me. He did videos shitting on everyone and did videos praising Mr. Miscavige. Okay, it is within that context that I'm here to discuss Tom DeVocht's blog post today. And by the way, Tom, if you're out there and you just want to have a chat with me about any of this and all of this on my channel at any time, open invitation. I'm pretty sure you have my number. And this is not a video bashing Tom DeVocht in any way, but it is breaking down this blog post because I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions on this and a lot of thoughts about this. And even the idea that Scientology is something that should be saved is quite a controversial idea. Why? Why should Scientology be saved? Anyway, let's let the blog post do the talking. And I'm going to try to star as many comments as I can as we do this video. I'm going to star some right now. And yeah, let's have some fun with this, guys. Okay, Tom says, not anti-Scientology, just anti-Miscavige. A call to action. A heartfelt note to my friends. To all my friends, I'm going to shift the view on this a little bit. Let's go from the top instead of the bottom. Okay, Tom says, I started writing again, not out of ambition, but from a place of raw truth and lived experience, never sure how it would land. To hear from people who know the game, know the names, and know what's at stake means more than I can say. I am going to stop and interject when things occur to me. Like I said here, guys, I'm here to take my time on this one. I can tell you from personal experience that for a large number of years, let's say from 2009 until about 2015, 16, 17, I can tell you, I'm speaking for myself, I'm speaking for personal experience, but I'm also commenting. I think others would agree with this. There tends to have been a little bit of a sentiment that the people who really matter, the voices who matter the most, are the ones who worked at international management, the ones who worked directly with David Miscavige, the ones who met Tom Cruise, the ones who worked at the international base. There's been a little bit of a hero worship, if you will, of Scientology senior executives, ex-Scientology senior executives. It's been a little interesting to witness, because the truth is, when it comes to ex-Scientologists speaking out and telling their stories, I guess if you wanted to try to measure or evaluate the value of those stories, or the value of those people, or the value of someone with that experience, you'd have to sort of analyze, well, what are you trying to accomplish by telling the story? Like, is it just clout? Is it, look at me, I was important, I work with David Miscavige? Or are you trying to educate people on Scientology? Are you trying to educate people on the Scientology experience? Because the truth is, the experience of a public Scientologist sure as hell is a lot more relatable to someone who's never been in Scientology than the experience of someone who worked at a secret base with David Miscavige for 20 years. So you have to understand, this is coming from me, someone who thinks all Scientology voices are equally valuable, all experiences are equally valuable. And I guess you have to go, what is it that someone who's never been in Scientology considers valuable? What information is valuable? What stories are valuable? How can they relate to it? I feel like what we have seen play out over the last 3 years, where, you know, you don't have to be someone who worked with David Miscavige or met Tom Cruise or worked at the international base to be someone who is effective in educating the public on the various ways that Scientology is a family-destroying international human trafficking cult, and they may not want to join, right? And so anyway, I want to comment on this here. There's this hero worship, and even some of the so-called journalists, but realistically just bloggers, who write about Scientology act like the only people who are important in Scientology are the people who worked with David Miscavige. And I think we've seen that play out over the last 3 years, that nothing could really be further from the truth. And I think that idea has actually held Scientology back. Scientology activism, anti-Scientology activism back. Because I think it's created an impression amongst many more rank and file members, of which I was one of those, that, well, what do they really have to offer to the conversation? What do they really have to offer that's unique? And I've always said, do you have an experience? Good. Your experience is unique. Someone else might have had a similar experience, but they didn't have your experience. Your experience is unique. Your story is unique. Just something that I wanted to say there. Okay. And I guess I was inspired to say that because the sentence, to hear from people who know the game, know the names, and know what's at stake means more than I can say. And I guess what I wanted to say there, your rank and file Scientologist, in Tom DeVocht's eyes, and I don't mean to speak for him, I'm just speaking, wouldn't be someone who knows the same names that he knows, or who knows the same game that he knows, because he spent 27 years working with and for and directly for David Miscavige at the senior most levels. His game was different than other people's games. The names he knows are different than the names other people knows. But I just want to point out, anyway, I think you guys see where I'm going with this. All right. After nearly a decade away from the subject entirely, I started telling my story. Maybe it was a form of healing. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect what came next, but a tidal wave of emotion hit me. I thought it was all gone. Maybe overstimulation is real after all. Since I started writing, I've spoken to fence sitters, under the radar members, active Scientologists, anti-Scientologists, and independents. I've seen the blogs, the YouTube channels, the Substacks. I've also seen the divides and fights from where I sit. I can assure you many of those fractures were strategically orchestrated by one person, David Miscavige. I could not agree with Tom DeVocht more when he says this. No matter how righteous, I certainly include myself in the statement, no matter how righteous and justified and morally backed someone can feel, I'm talking about myself, when putting up content, doing videos, sort of taking shots across the bow of other ex-Scientologists, it is worth understanding that even though that's kind of it's normal to have, normal human behavior, to have conflicts and to want to defend oneself and to, want to sort of take shots and respond. It is also true that David Miscavige always wins a little bit when that happens. Now, in this community, the fact that two people disagreeing or arguing with each other, particularly publicly, is something David Miscavige would want or like. has very often been used as sort of a bludgeon against people to be like, you should never do that. And I think both things can be true at the same time. There can certainly be circumstances where it is justified and warranted and appropriate to respond publicly to something that's happening. But at the same time, it is always worth understanding that David Miscavige always wins a little bit there. And you sort of have to keep that in mind when deciding if something is worth it. I certainly haven't always made the right decision there. Okay. Tom continues on, and that just added to the charge building up inside of me. So I decided to stop feeling the charge and start leading one. All right, well, that's where I get into the Scientology Jesus. The idea that anything needs to be led is something I certainly cringe at. Speaking for myself, I reject the notion that ex-Scientologists need to be led in anything. I think that always leads to disaster. It leads to hierarchical structures. It leads to people being viewed as leaders. Now, I know in the YouTube space, right or wrong, people often view me as a leader, but that's in the YouTube space. I think that's because I have the bigger channel or the biggest channel in the space. I put out the most content in the space, but I'm not leading anyone other than leading the effort to put out the most Scientology content on YouTube. Do you see what I mean? It's like, if you want to do the same thing, do the same thing. If you're someone who has not attacked me, my friends, or my foundation, if you want to collaborate with me, I'll collaborate with you. If I want to promote your channel, I'll promote your channel. But there's no quid pro quo. There's no obligation. There's no hierarchical structure. There's no expectations. There's no leader worship. There's none of that. So because we've seen what happened with Marty Rathbun, and then after that, I would argue we saw a little bit of what happened with Mike Rinder and Leah Remini after that, I would argue. And because I've seen how people have tried to use my perceived leadership role in the YouTube space as a weapon against many, many people. I just say, I'm just commenting, the idea that now some new charge needs to be led makes me go, okay. So let's see what we're talking about here. Tom goes, because my nightmare did not begin. Oh, wait. So I decided to stop just feeling the charge and start leading one. Because my nightmare didn't begin when I joined Scientology. It began when David Miscavige inserted himself and claimed to own it. I worked directly for him, with his inner circle, with Shelley. I got close enough to see how his mind works. I know what drives him. I know what drives him crazy. And I know what he fears and why he fears it. And I know this, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, deep down, we all know this. We were Scientology. Whether we believed in all of it or just some of it, what made it work, what made it home was us. This is interesting. We were Scientology. Now, it would be fun to chew on this fat with Tom himself and have a bit of a back and forth discussion about this. But let me give you my thoughts on this. Certainly, the culture of Scientology is what the people in Scientology at any given time make it. That is certainly true. The culture of Scientology, the lived experience of Scientology is what Scientologists make it. But Scientology is what L. Ron Hubbard said it was. And both of these things are true. The Scientology experience is also mostly dictated by David Miscavige. It is very much a top-down situation. But if you're looking back on your past and you're looking back with nostalgia and you're looking back at what you loved and what kept you there, certainly it was you and whoever it was that was around you. And I think it's probably, I'm guessing it's probably easier for Tom to have an awful lot of nostalgia because he was in Scientology and in the Sea organization and a high-level executive long before David Miscavige ever turned it into the worst possible version of itself that Scientology has now become. And I say that unreservedly. Scientology although under L. Ron Hubbard, I would argue, has always been a con, has always been a scam. Even if certainly there's lots of parts of Scientology at the lower levels that many, many people have found helpful. And it's worth noting that, and it's worth understanding that. If Scientology wasn't able of making people feel helped in various ways at the lowest levels, nobody would ever get in. Nobody would ever stay. But the truth is, Scientology is not really, like the lower levels isn't what Scientology really, really is. The lower levels of Scientology is what sucks people in, but that's not really what Scientology is. Scientology is essentially a scam that L. Ron Hubbard has pitched to people that they are gods who are trapped in physical bodies and in the physical universe. And with Scientology, through L. Ron Hubbard's procedures, if you do exactly as he says, exactly how he says it, and never deviate, you can travel the path he traveled and taped for everybody else so that it could also be easily traveled. You too can become a superhuman, free from the physical universe, physical bodies, free from the cycle of birth to death, and become re-achieve your native immortal godlike status. That's a lie. That's a fraud. That's a con. L. Ron Hubbard never achieved it. No other Scientologist ever achieved it. So the whole thing is a sham. And yet, the people who existed in Scientology from 1954 until about 1990 were people who, to the best of my understanding, were relatively very, very good people, good-intentioned people, good-willed people, helpful people that thought they were saving the world. And the Scientology experience was just much different back then. Oh, that was my point. Even though Scientology, I believe, under L. Ron Hubbard, has always been a con and a scam, David Miscavige has managed to turn the organization itself and the experience of being a Scientologist into the absolute worst possible version of that it could be. And people who were in Scientology prior to 1990 can have a lot of nostalgia on the community, social group aspect of what Scientology felt like back then. I believe that is what Tom is referring to when he says, we were Scientology. Okay, so he goes, whether we believed in all of it or just some of it, what made it work, what made it home was us. See, now that's interesting. I think the truest part of that sentence is what made it home was us. What made it work, that's a little more confusing to me. Okay, he goes, and I, for one, am sick of having to explain why I stuck with it for so long. It was a cult. I got caught up in lies. Those answers might satisfy others, but they're not the whole story. The truth is, I loved the people I was in it with. It was new, it was fun, and most of us were at our core ethical and well-intentioned. That's the part nobody talks about. Again, this is where I kind of go, Tom, what do you mean nobody talks about it? Just because you haven't been talking about it for the last 10 years doesn't mean nobody talks about it. And this idea that because you haven't been doing it, nobody's been doing it, and that because you've just come back onto the scene, there's some new charge that needs to be led. I just feel like these two things are kind of closely correlated here. You thinking there's a charge that it right now needs to start being led for the first time, I feel is somewhat related to you sharing the sentiment. Nobody talks about the fact that we stayed there because we loved the people we were with and it was fun and it was well-intentioned. Everybody talks about that, Tom. Everybody talks about that. Okay. And he goes, and it's the part that mattered. But that Scientology is gone because David Miscavige turned it into a weapon. I could not agree more. He turned suppressive person declares into candy. He enforced forced abortions, murders by rewriting policy for his own benefit. He ripped families apart with disconnection, not to protect anyone, but to protect himself. And the list goes on. Now he hides behind the armor of religious recognition. But I remind you, David Miscavige is not a religion. He doesn't own you. He doesn't own me. And he sure as hell doesn't own Scientology. Okay, this is the next part where I sort of take pause. You know what else isn't a religion? Scientology. Scientology isn't a religion. It's a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. It is a business masquerading as a religion. It is a human trafficking organization. It is a sex trafficking organization. It is not a religion. And if you want to go, okay, but the IRS said that it was. Okay, I don't care. Who cares? And I feel like to have to say David Miscavige isn't a religion, for me, does imply, but you're saying Scientology is. And it's one thing to say that you want to help people understand the very real social anchors that kept Scientologists in place. It's perfectly fair and reasonable to me. It's another thing to still, sort of wax nostalgic about the good old religion of Scientology that David Miscavige destroyed for us. But again, just because this is how I feel doesn't mean it's the only one right, true, and way to feel. Like, Tom's free to feel however he wants, but others are also free to comment on it, and that's why I'm doing this. I think this is fascinating discussion. I'm not even mildly approaching this conversation from the perspective of I'm right, Tom's wrong. We have different perspectives, clearly, and I thought it was worth commenting on. And I'm dying to know what you guys think about all this as well. And Tom, I'd die to have a chat with you about this as well. I'm sure we'd have a really great conversation. So, but when he says David Miscavige doesn't own you, David Miscavige doesn't own me. But Tom, who do you think thinks that he does? Right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, so there's been hundreds of ex-Scientologists over the last 10 years who've pretty been blatantly thumbing their nose at David Miscavige. I mean, that's sort of what SPTV is all about. David Miscavige doesn't own anyone, especially us. Do you see what I mean? So anyway, we'll just keep going. Oh, okay. He sure as hell doesn't own Scientology. You see, that's kind of the problem, though, because he kind of does. And if you want to, it sure sounds like, and this is actually one of the things that made me go, I have to do a video about this. It sounds like the sentiment of an independent Scientologist. Only someone who wants to practice Scientology outside of Scientology, the mother church of Scientology, would make the argument David Miscavige doesn't own Scientology. You could say he doesn't own your experience. You could say he doesn't own whatever. He sure as hell does own Scientology. Unless you're talking about the subject, the spirit. This is what an independent Scientologist would say. Now, I've already read through this entire blog post yet, and Tom DeVocht does not say he's an independent Scientologist, but it sounds like his sentiments are those of an independent Scientologist. And if that's the case, that would be interesting to know. Yeah, because I'll tell you who else was an independent Scientologist. Marty Rathbun. Marty Rathbun saw himself as the leader of the ex-Scientology and the independent Scientology movement. And I think it's important. I mean, this is an important piece of the overall discourse of everything that happens in the ex-Scientology world. Okay, Tom says, David Miscavige is an individual, one who can and should be held accountable. I am not here to attack Scientology. See, here's the problem, though. David Miscavige is not the only person responsible for the horrific abuses that occur in Scientology. And David Miscavige is not even more responsible than L. Ron Hubbard for the horrible abuses that occur in Scientology. Someone could make the argument the abuses that occur in Scientology are always done by individuals. They're not done by the organization. They're not done by David Miscavige. Guys, these arguments are exhausting. The individuals in Scientology that commit crimes and abuses are doing so because they are in line with the beliefs and policies and orders of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, and David Miscavige. And yet, even still, there are Sea Org executives who are good people, and there are Sea Org executives who seem to take pleasure in doing evil. There's obviously all this stuff exists on a spectrum. But the phrase, I'm not here to attack Scientology, I think that's strange. I think that's strange. It implies there's something wrong with attacking Scientology. And of course, he's free to believe that and feel that way and write that. And I'm free to do a video about it. I'm getting all sorts of red flags from this type of language, which is why I labeled this video as This Man Scientology Jesus. Is this man another high-level Scientology executive who's come on down from upon high to grace us with his leadership and his wisdom and his sentiment and dictating what is the right way to do Scientology activism? What is the righteous way to do it? And if you're not here for the right reasons. Because I tell you, I ain't fucking here for that sort of lecturing at all. Okay, let's keep going. He goes, I'm not here to attack Scientology, but I will go after the man who has assaulted our beliefs, our families, and our better judgment. David Miscavige is the weak underbelly. Alone and exposed, he's vulnerable. And believe me, he knows it better than anyone. But David Miscavige isn't alone and exposed. Okay. All right, let's keep going. David Miscavige welcomes attacks on Scientology. He uses them to raise money, to deflect scrutiny, to disappear behind the noise. So I'm not going to add to the noise. I'm going to document not just stories, not just outrage, evidence of fraud, evidence of abuse, evidence that his Scientology, quote unquote, is no more than a front for real estate acquisition and personal gain. Oh, man. A fundamentally decent message threaded with some red flags, in my opinion. It's basically, David Miscavige loves it when you attack Scientology because he uses that as propaganda and fundraising. I go, so what? So what? Scientologists will believe anything their cult leader tells them, and they will never leave until they personally are pushed beyond what they are willing to experience. Who cares what David Miscavige is going to do with this and do with that and do with this and do with that? The internet has existed for quite some time now. Scientologists are perfectly capable of getting onto the internet and finding out all of the truth about their psychotic little dictator and the fraud and con that is Scientology. And they already self-police. They already are the ones that don't go and seek the answers and the information that are there to be had. Like the fact that Miscavige will continue to use new things as additional propaganda isn't the reason not to do the new things, because there's no right way to do Scientology activism. There's only a few wrong ways. And I think the wrong ways are clout chasing and intentionally creating hatred and division. Like if you're going into an area just to create separations and divides. Other than that, I don't think there is necessarily a wrong way. Let me see. I had other thoughts on this. Exactly. Okay. He welcomes attacks on Scientology. He uses the attacks on Scientology to raise money, to deflect scrutiny, to disappear behind the noise. So I'm not going to add to the noise. I think it's impossible to ignore the fact that intentionally or otherwise, Scientology activism, particularly on YouTube, that doesn't meet the criteria that Tom is setting here as valuable and effective, he is characterizing as noise. And I think that is quite remarkable. Quite remarkable. Okay. I can tell you that ex-Scientologists, for the most part, speaking from my opinion, but not trying to speak actually on behalf of others, do what they do, say what they say, do their stories, do it how they do it, because they want to, because it makes them feel good. It empowers them. Being able to stand up and say or do anything that you weren't allowed to do when you were in Scientology is just a valuable form of self-expression. It doesn't have to be for some greater good. It doesn't have to be to save the world. It doesn't have to be to save Scientologists. It doesn't have to be to help people get out of Scientology. It can be done just for your own reasons because it makes you feel good. It can be done just to help the rest of the people in the world understand that there's this thing called Scientology and it really sucks and you don't want to get involved in it. And here's some information about it. To call that noise is so elitist, okay? It's so condescending. And to me, it just continues to sort of fit that narrative of the former senior execs from on high, who are the only ones who really know what they're talking about and what they're doing. They will set the tone. They will dictate, and anything else is, the peons will keep making their noise, but I'll come along and show everyone how to be effective. I mean, I don't mean to go too much on a roll about all this, but there's a reason why I decided to do this video today, and it's because of how I felt when I read this blog post. Just stories. He says, I'm going to document, not just stories. What the fuck is just a story? Are you absolutely kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? I mean, was Going Clear just a story? Were all the ex-Scientologists who put their necks on the line and exposed themselves to Scientology harassment by appearing on the Leah Remini television show, were they just telling stories? I don't even understand the point of characterizing anything like it. Just telling stories. What has every journalist or documentarian or TV producer that's ever put out content exposing Scientology done, if not just telling stories? Okay. And that's what I say. Like, you want to talk about evidence of fraud, evidence of abuse? Tom, if you've got evidence of fraud and evidence of abuse, where the fuck have you been for the last 10 years? You think you're the only one that's been busy making money and raising a family? You have some evidence you've been sitting on for the last 10 years. I'd be really fucking interested in hearing why you didn't think it was worth sharing then. You did some blog posts, you got some good feedback, and all of a sudden you want to lead the new charge and insult everyone else that's actually been doing this for quite a long time now, as have you. You were doing this when I was still in Scientology. So I'm not necessarily, this is not, a dick measuring contest. But, one of the things that I've objected to the most in the present iteration of the ex-Scientology community is people who insist that what they're doing and how they're doing it is the only right way to do it. And no one's ever heard me say anything as stupid as that. You've heard me say the fucking opposite, okay? It's only people like Nora Ames and a handful of others who are out here going, if you're not doing what I'm doing, then you're not here for the right reasons. And that's one of the reasons Nora Ames has failed on YouTube, because she's holier than thou. She's a virtue signaler. She lectures. She's the moralist of the ex-Scientology community. And you've seen there's absolutely no appetite for that. Nobody can stand watching Nora's content, and nobody does. And that's why. Because it wasn't good enough for Nora to just go, hey, man, I love everything everyone's doing, and we're all working together. Once she decided she was going to be the police. She was going to be the police. She was going to be the, she was going to be the tone police. She was going to be the tone police and the content police. And that's one of the only things that's gone wrong in this community, is when someone decides, if you're not doing it my way, you're not doing it right. If you're not promoting my channel, you're not here for the right reasons. If you're not promoting my initiatives, you're just here for clout and money. It doesn't work. That doesn't work. No one gives a shit about that. No one's here for that. That's what Scientology was all about. Okay. Tom continues on. Evidence that David Miscavige's Scientology is no more than a front for real estate acquisition and personal gain. Active Scientologists and longtime contributors who've been manipulated into donating under the guise of keeping Scientology working deserve somewhere else to go. A safe haven, one that isn't anti-Scientology, but anti-Miscavige. What the fuck? What the fuck does that mean? Active Scientologists and longtime contributors to Scientology who've been manipulated into donating to Scientology under the guise of keeping Scientology working deserve somewhere else to go. Have you never? What the fuck are you talking about? People have been leaving Scientology for generations. Active Scientologists who love L. Ron Hubbard and love the tech, but don't like David Miscavige, have been becoming independent Scientologists for literally generations. So this sounds like, and I'm saying sounds like because I can't insist that I know what's in Tom's head or what he means by his words. I can only respond to how I interpret them. It sounds like he wants to create a new independent Scientology. And that is also what the inspiration for the video is. This man, Scientology Jesus. A safe haven that isn't anti-Scientology, but is anti-Miscavige. I mean, honestly, like extrapolate this out a little bit. What this is also, I'll say, implying is that ex-Scientologists doing anti-Scientology activism have created an environment that would actually prevent people from wanting to leave Scientology because it's not safe for them. And if that's how Tom feels, then I'd like an opportunity to, discuss it with him further and see what his other thoughts are about this. But the truth is, I and tons of other people who do what I do here on YouTube can attest to the scores and scores and scores of ex-Scientologists and now ex-Scientologists and still under the radar Scientologists who say how much they love what it is we do here on YouTube. And so, this declaration that it's like saying, Tom saying that this is something that we need is the same thing as saying it's something that we don't have and also has never existed, which would be one of the most diluted, self-centered things to say. And I'm not totally convinced that's what he's saying, but it sure as hell sounds like that's what he's saying. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the live chat and in the comments down below. Okay, he says, I respect all religions. They all have their faults. They all have their truths. And we all have a right to believe in whatever we choose. No disagreement there. So I'm inviting everyone, active Scientologists, former Scientologists, fence sitters, and critics. Let's stop yelling at the fortress. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Let's stop yelling at the fortress. Oh, Tom DeVocht doesn't like what's the Scientology activism that's happening. You're going to come along. You're going to tell everyone the right way to do it. You're going to show everyone the right way to do it. Where the fuck have you been for 10 years? Like, you writing blog posts that 16 people read, sure as fuck isn't any better than anything you're complaining about. What is it that you're proposing you're going to do, Tom, that's more effective, reaches more people, helps more people than what people are currently doing? It is the lecturing, condescending tone of this blog post that I'm emotionally responding to. It's a little wild. Let's stop yelling at the fortress. It also implies that you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z unless you have some save the world complex purpose for doing it. Ex-Scientologists who go down and protest outside the flagged land base, maybe it's okay for them to do it just because they want to, just because that base and the people on the base and the leadership of the base represent to them a giant period of their life of oppression. And that just being in the space and holding space and taking back the space is therapeutic. Is that not good enough for you, Tom? Let's stop yelling at the fortress. Let's go through the back door. What? What the fuck is the back door? How about let's stop yelling at the fortress? Let's go through the front door. Okay. Guys, the only reason I'm saying what's the back door is because I've already read this blog post and I don't understand the back door analogy. Are we sneaking in the back door? Okay, we have firsthand accounts. We have financial records. Who's got the financial records, Tom? Are you sitting on the financial records? Are you just saying that the financial records exist, but no one's done videos about it? Tom, share with me the financial records. I'll bring you on. We can do a video about the financial records. Do the journalists have the financial records? Have you given Tony Ortega the financial records? I can tell you there's been an awful lot of content generated about whatever financial records exist. But do you have them, Tom? Okay, we have eyewitness testimony. We have enough to hang the man legally and publicly. Who's we? Who is we? We have enough to hang the man legally. Okay, well, I can tell you, there's already a number of ex-Scientologists who have very bravely been litigating against David Miscavige. Have you reached out to their teams to help them in any way with any affidavits? I don't think you have. That would be wonderful. I think they would very much appreciate that. But like, we've been hanging David Miscavige publicly for a long time. You participated in that. Now you're re-entering the arena. Don't pretend like it hasn't been happening just because you haven't been here. David Miscavige is being hanged publicly on this channel every single day for 3 years. Not only do I hang him, but then I put my balls right on his forehead and I say, how do you like that, little Davy? And if you want to hang him legally, well, that's already being done right now. Maybe you want to offer some support to the lawsuits instead of pretending like it's never fucking occurred to anybody that something like that could be done. Okay, we have enough to hang the man legally and publicly, and don't be fooled by the spin. The statute of limitations has passed. It's too late. That's what Miscavige wants you to believe. And that is an incredibly valuable statement. And it's nice to finally see a high-level former Scientology executive explain that is bullshit, because that's the bullshit Mike Rinder peddled for a very long time. Statute of limitations can't be done. Statute of limitations can't be done. And then when the statute of limitations was lifted in the state of California for a whole 2-year period where anybody could bring a lawsuit for child sex abuse in the state of California, did Mike Rinder tell anybody about that window or get even a single lawsuit filed? No. Okay, so I'm actually relieved to see a former high-level executive admit this statute of limitations bullshit is bullshit. Thank you for saying that, Tom. Okay, Tom says, we've been fighting the wrong target, and we've been approaching it as individuals. He can buy off and outlast any of us alone. Well, he hasn't bought you off, Tom, has he? He hasn't bought me off. He hasn't bought, well, he bought your friend Marty off. He bought your friend Debbie Cook off. So who the fuck are you talking about? He can buy anyone. The evidence shows he can't buy off any one of us alone. And I actually object to the idea that we need to be organized and cooperate and everything. It just doesn't work like that, in my humble opinion, at least. Okay, we've been approaching it as individuals. He can buy off and outlast any of us alone. But united, there is no fight. We just end it by taking away the power he was never meant to have. Taking away his power. Taking away his power over the mother church of the Church of Scientology International? That can't be done. And why would anybody care to do that? Only to rescue Scientology. Only to bring back Scientology. The good old days when Scientology was more fun. Why? Why? The comment about I respect all religions and all religious beliefs. Yeah, okay, so do I. What the fuck does that have to do with Scientology? Scientology. Like, what does that have to do with Scientology? You don't see me out there protesting Christian churches or synagogues or mosques. You see ex-Scientologists protesting Scientology. The implication, I respect all religious beliefs. Okay, so you respect are you saying that because I respect the religious beliefs of Scientologists as well? But I do as well. I don't care that they believe in Xenu and the between lives implant stations and body thanes. I care about how it's a family destroying human trafficking cult. And I do also kind of care about, the fact that I know, David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard was lying about OT 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And that Scientologists aren't in Scientology just to feel a little bit better or just to go clear or just to go OT. They're there to go full OT. That's the promise. That's the carrot. And that's a lie. So what are you talking about respecting people's religious beliefs? Okay. Oh yeah. So take away, we end Scientology. Oh wait, we just end it by taking away the power David Miscavige was never meant to have. David Miscavige has no real power, only what we've allowed him to keep. Who's we? Scientologists? I'm not in Scientology anymore, Tom. What do you mean? The power we've allowed him to keep. We out here are helping Scientology become a little smaller and a little less influential and a little more powerful every single day. I sort of bristle at the implication that it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough what we're doing, guys. We're not doing it right. We need to do it better. And I'm not going to do it better just by doing it better. I'm going to do it better by telling you all you're not doing it right. That's kind of the tone. It's time to take it back. It's time to stop making noise. It's time to be effective. Holy fucking shit. Way to tell everyone who's been doing Scientology activism for the 10 years that you've been gone that they're just making noise and they're just being ineffective. Way to walk in a Thanksgiving dinner and take a big giant fucking shit right on the middle of the table and then ask if you can be invited back to the next dinner. I mean, come on. This is going over like a dead cat at a funeral here. Okay. It's time to reclaim what rightfully belongs to all of us and put the hijacker behind bars. You're saying that Scientology rightfully belongs to all of us. It sounds to me like you miss the good old days of being in Scientology and you just want all of that back. That's mind-blowing to me. That's mind-blowing to me. And look, it's totally possible that I'm misunderstanding and misinterpreting and strawmanning the words that are written in this blog post, but I'm doing it to the best of my ability. I'm reading them to the best of my ability. I'm interpreting it to the best of my ability to understand English. I'm being as fair and charitable as I think I can be. Do you guys read this differently than I do? Please let me know in the live chat or the comments down below. There's more coming. This is a coordinated strategic campaign, and you should be part of it if you agree with just one thing, that Miscavige himself is the correct target. We were Scientology. We are its future. Together, we can end his influence over any part of it, over us, over our families. This is a safe space, not anti-Scientology, just anti-Miscavige. What you do with Scientology when Miscavige is gone is up to you. But under our watch, it will never again be used as a weapon. This doesn't end with storytelling. It ends with justice. Tom, justice occurs in the courts, not just with civil litigation, but with prosecution. And dare I say, one can initiate and succeed with litigation and prosecution without telling everyone else has just been doing it wrong all along. And Tom, just like you say that, attacking Scientology feeds Miscavige's agenda, sort of. Telling people that the only way to ever be effective against Scientology is you have to engage in litigation or you have to engage in prosecution also kind of feeds into Miscavige's strategy, because Miscavige sure as hell doesn't want hundreds of ex-Scientologists on YouTube's doing what you call just telling stories. Tom, I got news for you. Those stories help an awful lot of people leave Scientology. And getting people to leave Scientology is the real way to rob Miscavige of his power. Or I should say a real way. Not only a real way, but a realistic way that we can all control, that is within all of our power. I can tell you I got no interest in being involved in litigation against Scientology unless they want to sue me. I would love it if they would sue me. I've got no plans to sue them. Why? I'm doing what I want to do right here already. They can come after me if they want. I'm not afraid of them. But why would I jump into the arena that they want me to be in? And that's not to say, the people who are currently involved in litigation, man, that's brave as fuck. And you know what? You want to know what? That's why I support them unreservedly. But telling people that that's the only way that's effective does feed into Miscavige's strategy as well. Okay. This doesn't end with storytelling. It ends with justice. Thank you again to everyone who's reached out, commented, and encouraged. Let's not just speak out. Let's finish it. More soon Devo. Okay, P.S. Whether you think Debbie Cook did the right thing by taking a payoff or going quiet is up to you, but I'll say this. Her 2011 letter was the single most effective blow ever dealt to David Miscavige. Why? Because it did something no protest, no documentary, no lawsuit had done before. It targeted David Miscavige, not the Church of Scientology, not the belief system, but him. And whether she meant it to be or not, Miscavige saw it as a call to arms, and he knew it could work. I would guess that more than 80% of Scientologists today see through David Miscavige's bullshit, but they've had nowhere safe to go until now. Are you absolutely out of your fucking mind? What do you mean people in Scientology have had nowhere safe to go until now? Tom, what is the safe space they have to go to now? Your Substack blogs? What is the safe space that has not existed up until now that now exists because you've come back and are writing articles? The fucking elitism and the delusion is off the fucking charts here. And I didn't actually intend to do this video to actually get mean and nasty and insulting. But this is pretty fucking insulting shit. This is pretty delusional shit. And this is, to me, this is just shades of Marty Rathbun. Nothing has ever been done like this until now. What the fuck? You have to be out of your mind. Okay. Now, the truth is, what Tom DeVocht said about Debbie Cook's email is 100% true. Debbie Cook's email was absolutely devastating to David Miscavige. But guess what? That email already went out to every Scientologist in the world back in 2011, I believe it was. And people left Scientology at that time. A lot of people left Scientology at that time. In fact, I just yesterday spoke to a 30-year Sea Org veteran that just recently left the Flag Land Base. And he gave me some personal anecdotes from his position, illustrating just how effective Debbie Cook's email was in getting people to leave Scientology. But Tom is missing the mark as to why it was so effective. It wasn't just effective because of what it said. It was effective because of who it was coming from. Debbie Cook was an unbelievably famous, well-known, and loved Sea Org executive. Now, she wasn't loved by everyone who worked under her, but in the world of Scientology, everybody knew who she was, and she had a very, very good reputation. And everybody knew that she had personally worked with L. Ron Hubbard. And she personally ran the entire Flag Land Base for 15 to 20 years. So when she sends out an email saying, I love Scientology, I love L. Ron Hubbard, I love the tech, we have to stop supporting David Miscavige's programs that violate everything L. Ron Hubbard would have wanted. It's who the message came from that mattered. Debbie Cook sent out this email to all Scientologists in the world when she was still a Scientologist in good standing. That is why it was effective. Nothing that you, Tom DeVocht, or Leah Remini, or me, or Mitch Brisker, or anyone, nothing any of us have to say to Scientologists who are still firmly in the bubble will have any effect whatsoever. Only when they have already started to question Scientology does the stuff that we have to say matter to them. Debbie Cook's email was so effective because it was able to get through to people who were still true believers. That's why the lowest hanging fruit has already been shaken off the tree. It is getting, in some ways, harder and harder to get people out of Scientology because it's almost like a self. I'm not going to be able to think of the phrase here. The people who were easiest to wake up have already been woken up. That's kind of where I'm going with it. For the last 5-10 years, it's been so easy to find out the truth of Scientology that the lowest hanging fruit has already fallen. Okay, now for the rest of this blog post, he actually just reprints Debbie Cook's email, which was fantastic. And I've actually done at least one entire video just reading that whole email. So there's no reason for me to read it again right now. But I got to tell you, it sure feels like someone's trying to be the new Scientology Jesus. like Marty Rathbun did. And it does make me wonder how many of the former high-level Sea Org members that worked closely with Tom and know Tom very well feel the same way. I sure would like to know, just on a personal level. I mean, I'm not saying it's got to be made public, but I would like to know who feels that we should be saving Scientology and who feels that we should just be helping Scientology fail as fast as possible. I'm on the we should be helping Scientology fail as fast as possible train. And I don't condemn anyone who's on a different train, but I feel like it would be nice to know. All right, let's look at a bunch of starred comments here, and we'll wrap this one up. I'll start with some of these. Great gig in the sky. Another higher up coming out of Scientology and having difficulty understanding their opinion and framing of reality does not matter to ex-Scientologists and those who support them. Very Rindery. Now, again, to clarify, Tom's been out of Scientology since even before Mike Rinder left Scientology. So he's definitely not new on the block, but he is newly returned to the block. Lena in Love, thank you for being a channel member for 14 months. That is awesome. Absence of cult equals Stockholm Syndrome romanticide. Yes. I certainly don't want to give the impression that I hold hold it against anyone for being nostalgic of some of their times in Scientology. I can tell you that as a teenager, particularly those years that I spent at Flag, those were very important years of my life and years that I look back on very, very fondly. But it does not cause me to in the least think or feel that somehow we should be saving Scientology or taking Scientology back from Miscavige or we should be continuing to be practicing Scientology. Like I don't hold nostalgia against anybody. That's certainly not the issue. Okay, CO Bilf. How do you guys like Trey Lotz and Max? Wait, how do you guys like Trey Lotz and Max Howry feel about someone coming along and saying people have nowhere to go? Yes, I think because it's true in Tom's thing here, it's sort of almost a call to action. Let's have everyone come together. The Scientologists, anti-Scientologists, fence sitters, independent Scientologists. And it's like, you're kind of shitting on everybody and asking everyone to come to your party. I think the independent Scientologists might even be a little more pissed off about what you've said than I have, because I don't consider that one of the things that I'm trying to do is to create a space for ex-Scientologists to come into. Do you know what the space? I'm sorry, for Scientologists to come into when they leave. Do you know what that space is called? The real fucking world. Welcome to it. Welcome to the real world. This is what exists outside of Scientology. We don't have to create this like landing zone for them. Now, the ex-Scientology community is to a certain extent a landing zone for people leaving Scientology. But to imply that it doesn't exist or it's never been safe or it's never been effective is insane. It's absolute madness. Okay, let's do this. Rib Guy, thank you so much for donating 5 channel memberships. That's incredibly generous and kind of you. Okay, Parker Osmond says, we were kids working 20-hour days on a ship in international waters so L. Ron Hubbard could escape taxes and lawsuits. Janice Gillum Grady, former Sea Org member. Absolutely. Absolutely. Quote, I was forced into the Sea Org at 12. I worked endless hours for almost nothing. Laura D. Crescenzo, former Sea Org member. Lady Victoria, so does that mean you were trafficked yourself? So, I mean, I think the answer is yes. The thing is, I never thought of it that way. I think when you hear stories from victims of all sorts of things, I think it is very, very common for them to say, I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I don't like to call myself a victim. I don't see myself as a victim. I think worse things happen to other people. It's one of these things where, and that's true for me. That's true for me. At no point would I have known that what was happening was child trafficking and labor trafficking. The only thing I can say is, thankfully, nothing that happened to me would be sex trafficking. But it was labor trafficking. It was. By definition, it was. And, I know I said I would never want to sue Scientology, but the truth is there's a fantastic, prestigious, powerful, brave law firm, Andrews and Thornton. And Ann Andrews is one of the founders of that firm. And one of the lawyers there, Kimberly DeGonia, is a superstar and a legend in taking on giant organizations like Scientology, like the Mormon Church, like the Catholic Church, like the Boy Scouts, for labor trafficking and sex trafficking. And this firm and this lawyer, particularly Kimberly DeGonia, is currently taking on any and every case that she can against Scientology, and Scientology should be terrified. And if Kimberly DeGonia decides that I have a labor trafficking case against Scientology, then I will bring one. I will. But litigation, deciding to do litigation, encouraging others to do litigation, that's dicey, right? Because you're signing up for something that could be potentially very, very difficult. And so not everybody who has a case will want to bring a case. And I certainly object to implying that if someone doesn't bring a case, then they're just not doing enough. Everybody should do exactly what they are comfortable with doing. Okay, Deborah says, Moses was the one to lead the Israelites to the promised land, but he never stepped foot in there due to disobedience to God in striking a rock out of anger. Former Clearwater resident. Okay, cool. Kestrel, did you know Marty? I knew Marty Rathbun in Scientology. I didn't know him well. I never worked with him. When I was at Flag, and you have to understand, no one in Scientology actually knew everything that was going on behind the scenes with Marty Rathbun. But at some point, Marty Rathbun showed up to Flag and was introduced as the president of RTC. And that's just about as senior of a position as exists in Scientology. And he definitely walked around doing what he wanted, saying what he wanted. I mean, honestly, when Marty Rathbun was on the Flagland base, Marty Rathbun was the senior most Sea Org member on the Flagland base. Like, yeah. So I knew of Marty Rathbun. I had some involvement in Marty Rathbun. Marty Rathbun had a big role in the downfall and eventual death of my brother, in fact. But I couldn't say that I knew him in any like real, meaningful, and important sense. Lady Victoria, how many people report to Little Davy? That's a difficult question to answer. Because there's the precise organizational chart as it is published, and then there's whatever David Miscavige wants, whatever David Miscavige actually does. So I've been told, I think it's Mitch Brisker that has said, right now there's probably about 5 or so people that answer directly to David Miscavige, but actually in Scientology, according to L. Ron Hubbard policy, you're actually never supposed to have more than 5 people reporting directly to you. But even that is like, who cares? David Miscavige does whatever he wants. Parker Osman says, Scientology is about one thing, protecting itself. And if you get in the way, you're fair game. Mike Rinder, former head of Office of Special Affairs and ex-member. Ren again. Jesus. When I talk uninterruptedly for over an hour, I get all clogged up. Okay. Virtuously stealing all the tech and belief precepts from other religions or worldwide cultures is still theft or plagiarism. L. Ron Hubbard was the thief, not the savior. Patrick Bateman, this is the indie Scientology perspective? I don't know. This is Tom DeVocht's perspective. Jojo, it annoys me that the high-ups get all the preferential treatment in the media. It's the normal Sea Org who get treated the worst. I don't know. I would say recently, I understand what you're saying. I think it probably has to do with the fascination of people who can speak personally to issues about David Miscavige. But otherwise, anyway, I get what you're saying. Ren again, the biggest hero worshiper is Leah Remini towards Mike Rinder. I think she thought that he could walk on water. Yeah. Marilyn Honig, I'm really sick of a certain virtue signaling narrative, which says, let's stop the infighting, while at the same time blaming certain YouTube activists for everything. Yes, indeed. Jojo, if you had a group of current Sea Org members in a room, what would be one thing you would like to say to them that you think would help? To be honest, there is to someone who's a true, honest to God, hardcore believer, there's no one thing you can say, but maybe you're saying what's something that would, help the most. There's a few answers, but I like this one. The fact that there is no OT 9 and 10, there are no upper OT levels. It is all a lie. To me is always an important message, because those upper OT levels are literally the only reason Scientology is supposed to exist. Expanding Scientology so that it's big enough so that the upper levels can be released is literally supposed to be the only reason all these people are working their guts out so hard for Scientology 365. So if you go, hey guys, have you met a bunch of OT8s? Yeah, of course we have. Nothing special, are they? Nope, not really. In fact, sometimes they're crazier than your average Scientologist, aren't they? Yep. Well, if that was all you could ever achieve in Scientology, that would be kind of a waste, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would kind of suck. Okay, there's no upper OT levels, right? What? My pearls! You lie, good sir. And then you try to tell the story. If you can convince a Sea Org member, there's no upper OT levels. It's all a lie. Miscavige has been lying about it ever since he found out about the truth shortly after L. Ron Hubbard died. I genuinely feel like that would make a difference. There's no silver bullet, but that's my answer. Stay Spiria, great to see you. No, I'm sorry. Top down. Nah, I am not believing Davey is a top. And Jeffrey Augustine, Scientology Money Project. RTC owns all the Scientology copyrights. Therefore, whoever controls RTC effectively owns and controls Scientology. Of course, yes. Marilyn Honig. I don't like reading that quote, but thank you, Marilyn. Jojo, who would return to Scientology if Miscavige was replaced by someone else? Oh, damn. Now that is an important question, right? Who in the ex-Scientology community, if Miscavige was replaced, sorry guys, I hate it when I get clogged up like this, but I don't know what to do. And if they issued an amnesty that anyone who'd ever left Scientology could come back now because Miscavige is gone, who would go back? Not me, I'll tell you that much. I didn't want to do Scientology even when I was still in it. That is a damn good question. Mark Hardman, I wonder if Tom DeVocht was ever overboarded. So the people were overboarded. That only happened on the Apollo ship, to the best of my knowledge. And I do not remember if Tom was ever on the Apollo. They did bring back a modern version of waterboarding, which was to keep you in your uniform and dump a 5-gallon bucket of water over you. I'm guessing Tom was never overboarded, but maybe he was. I don't know. Jojo, why is this man not coming on podcasts to discuss these points? What do you think? I mean, which podcast would he go on? I mean, he's done a video with Tony talking about Clearwater, Florida. Has he done a video with Mark and Janice? I don't know. Like, whose podcast would he go on? I guess he could go on with Mark and Janice. Who else is still doing podcasts? He's welcome on with me anytime. That's for sure. But also, most of his blog is behind a paywall. And, there's nothing wrong with anybody making money. But I think Tom would be better off doing YouTube videos. Like, if I were Tom, I would do the blog posts, keep the blog posts behind a paywall for those who want to financially support in that way. But then do YouTube videos talking about your blog posts. You're going to reach a bigger audience. There's a ton of people who just are not going to go to a paywall. You'd still be able to make revenue on your YouTube videos anyway, but you'd also be able to reach a larger audience. So, I think there's a little bit of an elitism on the behalf of certain people who somehow think YouTube is beneath them. That would be a very outdated way of thinking. YouTube is the new mainstream media. It really is. So if you're not good at it, it won't work. But I hope he does. I'm more than happy to discuss all of this in a podcast. Andrew S., this fellow seems to have new tech to fight Miscavige. Mark Hardman, I think he's looking at his past life in Scientology through rose-colored glasses, selective memory, so to say. Constance June, I get tired about hearing about the nostalgia part. Nope. Tom, all the former executives who speak out have. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Anna from Canada, lack of education for children is child abuse. When any government allows children to not receive proper education, that's a dark stain on their government. CO Bill, David Miscavige declared suppressive by valid Rons.org Comev. Rib Guy has free zone written all over it. Starter Wife. This is a new screen name to me. This one is not familiar. Hello, Starter Wife. Thank you for being a channel member. Tom DeVocht only cares that he was abused. He doesn't seem to worry about everyone else. I mean, I would argue that Tom probably would say that he does care about the other people who were abused, and that's why he wants to get rid of Miscavige, is my guess. It's always something. He is correct on David Miscavige, but not on the fact that Scientology was good and helpful and non-injurious before David Miscavige took control. He remembers the good people and sense of purpose and community, but forgets the bad. CO Bilf, I think tactical differences are fine as long as no one is issuing decrees or tearing someone else down. Yes, I agree. Marilyn, do the free zoners believe in all the tech and doctrine of L. Ron Hubbard? Like beings in little bodies? Oh, like beings in little bodies. Why are so many second gens who fight this doctrine a target for the OGs? Interesting. I wonder who decided to call. I have been told that OG refers to anyone who was speaking out against Scientology before the anonymous days. But who the fuck decided that? It's so crazy to me. It's so crazy to me. I think the fact that there's even a term for it has created conflict in the community. Who decided to differentiate between people who spoke out before Anonymous and people who spoke out after Anonymous? Why do ex-Scientologists give a damn about whether an ex-Scientologist was speaking out before Anonymous or after Anonymous? I've never understood. But to address your question, my understanding is that free zoners technically believe in everything L. Ron Hubbard said, but I can't truly claim to speak for them because I've never been one of them. They certainly believe in thetans. So they certainly believe that a thetan is not dated by the age of their body. So they would certainly believe that everyone is an immortal thetan in a body. That's for sure. Yeah. Ben Bacon Bits. Yes, public awareness is a good reason to call the cult out, to let whether or not David Miscavige will use such to fundraise is letting him control your actions. I agree. He came down from Mount Xenu to fight Miscavige, pay-per-view style. Ann Teller, is he providing a limited hangout? I think is what they call it. Tom may or may not know that. And my understanding of a limited hangout, the way I've heard it described, is sort of like an intelligence operation where I guess someone, in order for this to make sense to me, someone would have to be like an intelligence asset, and they would go into a community specifically to admit to certain stuff to gain credibility so that they can credibly claim that the real bad stuff is not true. That's my understanding of what a limited hangout is. If I have that wrong, please let me know. I don't think that's in line with what Tom is doing here. But that's just me. Adam Carmona, Scientology doctrine is a codification of Hubbard's neuroses. It's fair game to point that out. Anna from Canada, for the US, the issue is your government. Both sides do this. When you allow unlimited bribes to any party, they will work for their donors and not you. This is why Scientology is not tax exempt. And I think you're about to say either in Canada or also the UK. Oh, here you go. In Canada, because we don't allow corporations to bribe us. Oh, interesting. So you think the no money in politics, and I'm just, taking it at face value because I don't know. I did not realize there was a no money in politics. Is there no, in Canada, are corporations not allowed to make unlimited contributions to political action committees that can then make contributions to candidates? I didn't realize that. And so you're saying that the fact that money influence in politics doesn't exist in Canada is a main reason why Scientology has never been able to get tax exemption in Canada. That never occurred to me. And that is fascinating. Andrew S., is he helping victims escape Scientology? I mean, Tom has helped people who are leaving Scientology. I mean, Tom helped Mike Rinder when Mike Rinder was leaving Scientology. Old Frizz, this is getting creepy. Are they really Scientologists? It's just mental. Marilyn, it's his OG friends who tell all the stories of the good old days. Sorry, I'll shut up. Oh. Marilyn, shots fired. I mean, it's true. But honestly, I mean, I think it's worth acknowledging, though, that back then, those were the good old days in Scientology. Those were the days when no one cared whether you were jacking off or sleeping. Like people are like, that's a weird place to go, Aaron. Guys, in Scientology, Miscavige and his current, generation of goons are so infatuated with whether people are pleasuring themselves. Like, I know it sounds crazy for me to go there. It's crazy that Miscavige has gone there. Like, okay, what's my real point here? Scientology used to be something that didn't feel oppressive to the people that were in it at that time. So those really were the good old days for Scientologists. And the whole atmosphere really was different. And I don't blame people for talking about the good old days, especially when they got in so much earlier than I did. So I was taken out of school at 12 years old. I started working for Scientology full-time, probably at the end of 12 years old, or more likely early 13 years old. And that was in 1993. LRH died in 1986. I don't know what L. Ron Hubbard version of Scientology was like. I only know David Miscavige version. So I actually get kind of like, I think it's funny to hear the stories of the good old days of Scientology, to be honest. But that's different than saying, and we need to get back to that. We need to save that. Because honestly, what made those the good old days was the community that they had. It wasn't Scientology. Like, they had a community of people who were tricked into believing they were saving the world. It feels really great to think you're saving the world and to be working towards that with a group of like-minded, fun individuals. But it was the individuals that made that fun, not Scientology, not the lie, right? Okay. Jojo, Aaron mentioning dicks. Haha, my pearls. Lydia Von Stretchclaw. Oh, fuck. Free zone all the way. It's Debbie Cook number 2. Now, that's the thing. Debbie Cook was a free zoner. She loved L. Ron Hubbard. Stay spurious. So he wants to run a squirrely splinter group. Ruth O'Hare. It sure sounds like independent Scientology. Cassie says, I took this as if he was talking to current and under the radar Scientologists, but I don't know. Ren again. New cult being born. Rib Guy, what he is stating is the exact thinking of those in the free zone. I've heard it for years. And Teller, there were already offshoots like Est. Several others popped up. They used what they saw as the good parts of the lower courses of Scientology, and they ignored the rest. Philosophy, backdoor, LMFAO. Maryland, no one is stopping him. Go for it, Tom. Bring Davey down. Jojo, I can't even think about Mike gatekeeping that info. He showed where his interests lie. CO Bilf, we need an org chart. Rib Guy, I'm waiting for my 8-figure buy-off check. I'd like it in cash or Bitcoin, please. Brian Lucas, I got news for you. Ain't no such thing as the good old days. Constance June, he's trying to create a hierarchy in the ex-Scientology community, like Mike with Child USA, and the lawsuits wants everything funneled through one person. Hell no. Anna from Canada, don't underestimate Never Ends. Candace, also known as Mark Barker. I want to know, was he on something when writing this? Liz, Gail. Good to see you, Liz. I'm just on replay, and I want to say hi. This pissed me off. Okay, so you read it too, right? I was like, what's going on here? Liz says, Tom DeVocht sent my 15-year-old cousin in the Sea Org to the pigs birthing, and she had to sleep in a roach-infested garage for weeks. Is that the Scientology good old days that we want back? There you go. Marilyn Honig, Debbie Cook's abusive treatment gave a young girl nightmares for years. A biatch. Adam Carmona, Scientology concealing its beliefs to potential converts is immoral and deserves to be opposed. CO Bill, Scientology itself isn't bad, and we have to focus on specific crimes that might have happened 40 years ago, is an Alonzo line. Oh, interesting. Good to see you, Anon. He thinks like a Scientologist. Jeffrey Pyfinch, this is just a manifesto of someone that wants to be the next cult leader. Arnie Van Halen, good to see you. Is Oh No Nora Mr. Potato Head? No, she is not. Constance June, thank you for gifting 5 channel memberships. Jenna Miscavige, good to see you, Jenna. I'm not caught up, but do you think it's a coincidence that Tom DeVocht's effort to lead a charge is coming so soon after Mike Rinder's passing? It seems impossible that it could be a coincidence, but it's funny because when Tom started this Substack blog, he specifically said, I am not doing this to pick up where Mike Rinder left off. He said, I am not doing this. Now you might go, that's what they all say in the beginning. But I do believe that he didn't intend to pick up where Mike left off. And also, by the end of Mike's life, and I'm willing to say this without reservation, he was not an independent Scientologist. And I don't believe he really sympathized that much with independent Scientologists either. I mean, he might not have been against them, but he might have been like when Mike Rinder left Scientology, he was 100% absolutely an independent Scientologist. He got onto his OT levels. I think he started auditing on OT7 at some point after he left Scientology. And so that's I guess that's the other reason why I'm like, it seems like it's not just a coincidence, but whether it was entirely intentional, I'm not sure that I could say that. Asa, great to see you. Gifted 5 channel memberships. Thank you very much. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this one up here. Let's see what time is it. It's only 5 o'clock. It's a Monday. I got a bunch more coming today, so stay tuned for that. But we'll wrap this one up for here. Wrap this one up here for now. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right